September 19th, 1940, Warsaw, Poland. On the ancient streets trampled by Nazi boots, a horrific scenario is unfolding. Nazi soldiers are rounding up civilians at random. In that day, 2,000 people will be shoved into trucks. Most of them are running, crying, or kneeling to beg for their lives. But amidst that chaotic crowd, there is one man going against the law of fear. He does not run. He walks straight toward the gun barrels. He proactively makes eye contact with the SS soldiers. He slows down as if wanting to ensure he will be caught. His name is Witold Pilecki, a cavalry officer, a husband, a father of 2 small children waiting for dinner at home. And at that moment, Pilecki prepares to perform an act that in human history no one had ever done before, and perhaps no one will ever dare to repeat. He volunteers to step foot into the hell of Auschwitz, not entering there as a guard, but as a prisoner. Welcome to the story of the volunteer for hell. This is not just a history lesson. This is a testament to the ultimate limits of courage and the bitterest price of loyalty. Stay until the end of the video, because the truth about the death of this hero will shock you about the nature of power and betrayal. To understand why Pilecki made that crazy decision, we must go back in time. Witold Pilecki was born in 1901 in Oleniec, deep within the Russian Empire. His family was not there by choice. His grandfather had participated in the 1863 Polish uprising against the Tsarist Russia. The punishment was exile. They were stripped of everything: land, property, and future. Pilecki grew up on stories of sacrifice, of ancestors who gave everything for a nation that didn't even exist on the world map then. Poland back then was just a ghost nation, a memory carved up by empires. In 1918, World War I ended, and Poland rose from the ashes. Pilecki was 17 then. He didn't celebrate with songs. He picked up a gun. At 19, he fought against the Soviets. At 20, he was already a veteran of 2 cock-leat wars. But then, peace came in a strange way. Pilecki became an incredibly ordinary man. He married Maria, a primary school teacher. They had 2 children, Andrei and Zofia. He managed the family farm, painted watercolors, and wrote love poems. For nearly 20 years, he lived the life of a farmer, a model father, a quiet patriot waiting for a call he hoped would never come. On September 1st, 1939, that call arrived. Nazi Germany attacked from the west. The Soviet Union attacked from the east. Poland was strangled in just a few weeks. Pilecki could have fled to England or France like many other officers, but he chose to stay. In Warsaw, he helped found the secret Polish army, TIAP, one of the first resistance movements in Europe. At this time, horrific rumors began to circulate. The Germans had built a massive camp near the town of Auschwitz, which they called Auschwitz. Polish political prisoners and intellectuals were taken there, and not a single soul returned. The resistance needed to know: what is Auschwitz? A prison? A labor camp? Or something much more terrifying? They needed an infiltrator. The commander looked around the meeting room. Everyone understood this was a one-way ticket to death. Pilecki raised his hand. Stop for a second to think about this number. 39 years old. He had a warm family, a stable career. He had given his youth to 2 wars. He had every reason to stay silent. But Pilecki understood. If no one goes in, the world will remain in darkness forever. If the world doesn't know, evil will have no limits. On September 19th, 1940, with the false identity of Tomasz Serafiński, he let himself be caught. Before leaving, he told his wife, "Don't try to ransom me. Don't try to save me. I'm going to an important place." He stepped into a world of which he later wrote, "I said goodbye to everything on this earth and entered something that seemed to no longer belong to it." Auschwitz in September 1940 was not yet an industrial death factory with massive gas chambers. It was initially a concentration camp for Polish political prisoners, but it was already hell. Prisoners were beaten for looking at guards, beaten for not looking at guards, beaten for walking too slow or too fast. The diet was scientifically calculated so you wouldn't die instantly, but wouldn't have enough to live. A bowl of watery soup and a piece of dry bread. The average life expectancy of a prisoner there was only 6 weeks. Pilecki was assigned prisoner number 48529. They shaved his head, dressed him in stripes, and stripped him of all humanity. While thousands of others focused on surviving one more hour, Pilecki began recruiting a resistance force within his first week. Building a resistance network in a concentration camp was impossible. SS eyes were everywhere. One slip of the tongue meant a painful death for you and your family. Pilecki established a genius system, the 5-man system. Each group of 5 only knew each other and their direct leader. If one was caught and tortured, they could only give up 4 others. The network would survive. By early 1941, his network was named ZOW, Union of Military Organization. They had people everywhere, in the kitchen to smuggle extra food for the hungry, in the hospital to hide weak prisoners from purges, in the records office to forge identities. Every day a prisoner stayed alive was a Nazi failure. But Pilecki's greatest mission was information. He began smuggling the first reports out. The methods varied through the rare released prisoners, through civilian workers sneaking into the camp, or hidden in the clothes of corpses sent for burial. In October 1940, Pilecki's first detailed report reached the Polish government in exile in London and British intelligence. But this is where the story turns dark. The world received the reports, but they chose not to believe, or rather, they didn't want to hear. Throughout 1941 and 1942, Pilecki witnessed Auschwitz transform into something unprecedented in history. Birkenau camp was built. Gas chambers and crematoria went into operation. Trains carrying Jews from all over Europe arrived. SS doctors stood at the tracks, pointing left or right. Right meant instant death. Left meant slave labor until exhaustion and then death. Pilecki recorded meticulously. The crematoria's capacity was 8,000 bodies a day. This was not random cruelty. This was an industrial killing machine operated by calculated mad minds. In a desperate report to London, Pilecki wrote, "The prisoners beg the Polish government, for the love of God, to bomb the camp. If we have to die in that attack, it would be a relief compared to this hell." Think about that. Prisoners begging to be bombed by their own army. His reports reached London, Washington. The Allies had satellite photos, witness testimony, specific figures, and the answer was silence. They said bombing Auschwitz was too dangerous, too far away. But the truth is, in 1944, American planes flew directly over Auschwitz to bomb industrial targets just a few miles away. They saw the gas chambers, they saw the black smoke from the furnaces, but they chose not to drop the bombs. An SS guard once told a prisoner, "No matter how this war ends, we have won the war against you. No one will be left to bear witness. And even if someone survives, the world will not believe them." Pilecki vowed to prove him wrong. But he was about to realize a more painful truth. The problem wasn't that the world didn't believe, it was that the world didn't care. Pilecki survived Auschwitz for 947 days. During that time, he suffered from pneumonia, typhus, and beatings that broke his bones. But his ZOW network saved him. They hid him in death lists, smuggled him medicine. They even built a radio transmitter from stolen parts and sent reports directly from the camp for months in 1942. By early 1943, Pilecki knew he had to get out. The Gestapo began to smell ZOW. If he were caught, the entire network would collapse. In the history of Auschwitz, there were about 800 escape attempts. Fewer than 150 succeeded. On the night of April 26, 1943, Pilecki and two comrades escaped from the bakery outside the fence. They cut the phone lines, used a fake key, overpowered a guard, and bolted into the darkness. "We tore the air with our frantic running," he recalled. They walked over 100 kilometers through Nazi-occupied territory to return to Warsaw. Pilecki brought with him 100 pages of the most detailed report on the Holocaust. He presented a bold plan to the Home Army, an external attack coordinated with an internal uprising of thousands of ZOW prisoners to liberate Auschwitz, and the answer was no. The commanders deemed the plan suicidal. Pilecki watched in agony as the trains continued to roll toward Auschwitz every day. He had gone into hell, returned, and brought the truth, but the world still stood by. In August 1944, the Warsaw Uprising broke out. Pilecki picked up a gun again. For 63 days and nights, the Poles fought alone. The Soviet army was close by, but Stalin ordered them to stop. He wanted the Nazis to destroy the Polish resistance so he could easily rule later. 200,000 civilians died. Warsaw was leveled. Pilecki survived miraculously, was taken to a German POW camp, and was liberated by the U.S. Army in April 1945. The war ended. Nazi Germany collapsed. But for Pilecki, the real tragedy was just beginning. Poland fell to the Soviet Union. The resistance heroes who fought the Nazis were now enemies of the people. Pilecki could have stayed in the West, but he chose to return. In late 1945, he sneaked back to Poland to gather evidence of the new communist regime's brutality. On May 8, 1947, Witold Pilecki was arrested by the secret police. What followed was even more horrific than Auschwitz. In a meeting with his wife at the prison, he whispered, "Auschwitz was just a game compared to this." The Polish communists tortured him because he loved his country too much. They broke his teeth, pulled out his fingernails. Pilecki did not utter a single word. On March 3, 1948, a show trial took place. Pilecki was accused of espionage. When given his last words, he said, "I have tried to live my life so that at my last hour, I feel joy rather than fear." On May 25, 1948, at 9:30 p.m., Witold Pilecki was led to the basement of Mokotów prison, a single shot to the back of the head. That was how they ended a hero. His body was thrown into an unmarked pit. For 40 years, his name was erased from history. Only in 1989 did his story emerge. The world was shocked. A man volunteered for Auschwitz to save humanity, but humanity let him die alone. Today, Witold Pilecki is honored as one of the bravest men in history, but his grave is still missing. He lies somewhere under Warsaw without a headstone. If you feel this story needs to be spread, please hit the like button and subscribe. It's the simplest way to ensure the memory of people like Pilecki is never forgotten again. In your opinion, what is the scariest part? Nazi cruelty or the betrayal of one's own people? Never let the truth be buried. As Pilecki said, the purpose of life isn't surviving at all costs, but living so that when death comes, we feel joy for having done what is right. Thank you for watching. See you in the next journey.